吃。哇，吃，切嘿，哇，吃嘿。
nanti mau tukar mic. Jangan 一下子先。
切，哇，吃。
Thank you so much. Okay, once again, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very warm afternoon, everyone. We hope you enjoyed the lunch that we have prepared. And now let's move on to our next agenda for this afternoon, the CEO panel session. With that being said, shall I call upon our moderator for this session on stage? Please welcome Mr. Manohar Johnson. He's the Southern Region Assurance Partner from PwC Malaysia. Please welcome. Thank you. And our esteemed speakers, that is Insinyur Nevender Singh Joel. He's the CEO of Asia Carbon Exchange, and Architect Salih Adre Sarkom, and he is the CEO of Green Building Index, with the topic Driving Business Growth Through Net Zero Commitments, Aligning Corporate Strategy with Global Sustainability Goals. And ladies and gentlemen, the floor is yours. Mr. Moderator, please welcome. Okay, and last and certainly not least, our esteemed speaker, introducing Mr. Frank Molto. He's the Managing Director of Surf Factor Asia Pacific Sdn Bhd. Thank you so much. Please welcome. All right. My apologies.
Thank you and good afternoon, everyone. I hope that everyone had a wonderful lunch. As my panelists and I had, getting to know a little bit of each other. For those of you who have traveled from outside of JB or Johor, welcome. Welcome to this beautiful state, which is making a way for many, many reasons. And as you can see from the sharing this morning, Johor is obviously trying to move the sustainability angle in the state in various methods, and hosting this Johor Green Legacy Summit is one of those ways that the state is taking the initiative by ensuring that we bring people from various backgrounds together and talking about areas that matter most to our heart, given the existential crisis that we all face now because of climate change and its effects. So let's get into today's discussion. We've got a really esteemed bunch of CEOs here with us, talking about driving business growth through the net zero commitments, and how do you really align your individual corporate strategy with what the global sustainability goals are. First and foremost, I will ask each of them to briefly introduce themselves and their organization. But I've also going to ask them to share a little bit of their personal journey in sustainability. Because as we all know, none of us were born with sustainability in our mouths and in our bellies. We all picked it up somewhere along the ways. And even for an auditor like myself, we ended up being resprayed with sustainability colors of different kinds over the course of our career. So let me first pass it over to Mr. Frank from Surfacto to open this session.
Good afternoon, everyone. Wow, it was Vanna karaoke. I hear myself 3 times. So I hope everybody is fine. Thank you for receiving us. I'm Frank Molto. I'm the managing director of Surfacto Asia Pacific. We are in Malaysia for more than 25 years now. We are a German company, more than 85 years of existence. So we are quite sustainable in the duration. And our activity is more into enhance the properties of the wood industry and the craft paper by mixing them with some chemicals. So that's not at the first sight very sustainable, but when you can take a piece of paper and make it use 20, 30 times to pour concrete and build wonderful houses in Malaysia, I think that's the best way to be sustainable. By this way, you preserve the natural resources. Everything is fine.
It's a guitar riff.
Yeah, I think we are really in a karaoke situation there.
Thank you, Frank, for that. Maybe then I'll pass it on to Sali to share a little bit about his organization that he has just joined recently, and maybe also for him to share a little bit about his personal sustainability journey.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Sarli, the CEO for Green Building Index. Yeah, maybe they can put on some of my slides. So I started in sustainability since I was a student because one of my lecturers is the famous architect Ken Young, who was supervising my final year thesis. So he influenced me a lot in sustainability, and Ken also offered me a job, which he was very angry since I rejected the job. The impact, we have 718 projects that are certified, 29.7 million square meters of building certified, and that equates to about 1.8 million tons of carbon equivalent per annum that has been stopped being released to the atmosphere. So just by doing green buildings, this is the impact per year. If you can imagine what 1 ton is, 1 ton of carbon equivalent is like a small car or an elephant. That's roughly 1 ton. So imagine 1.8 million. Yeah? And we have 18 tools in GBI, which we have developed with all our stakeholders. We have tools for data center, we have tools for industry, factories, we have tools for hotels, resorts, hospitals, because all these building typologies actually function differently, and we develop them not on our own, but with stakeholders, such as for the industry, we develop it with the Federation of Malaysian Manufacturers. For hospitals, we developed it with KPJ, and of course, the Ministry of Health, and so on and so forth. I put this slide just to show, Johor is on the map. Johor has currently 71 GBI rated buildings, and is actually one of the states that are actually pushing hard. Even in fact, MBJB, their building is GBI rated building, gold. Yeah? And we are looking at the future of 128 green rated buildings in Johor. So I think Johor deserves a round of applause. Yeah, go Bangsa Johor. Anyway, like our moderator mentioned, I just sat into the CEO role. Previously, I was in the board of directors for many years, but maybe kena turun padang sikit lah to make the changes. Yeah, so I think that's the wonderful thing about sustainability. It doesn't matter from which industry or from where you come together and get your hands dirty to make Malaysia better, to make the world better. Thanks.
Thank you. So for the audience, if you want to know whether the building that your office is in is one of the 71, Sally can help you identify whether it is. And if it isn't, then maybe you should think about getting your building certified. Last but not least is actually someone who's Bangsa Johor, as I found out during lunch, who has lived and worked here for many years, but also now is based out of KL. So let me now allow Nirinder Singh to introduce himself and also share his journey in sustainability.
Thank you very much, Manap. Thank you for having me back. It's good to be back to Johor, actually. I specifically decided to come back for one day to see this seminar because I missed the one last year. Right? And he was asking me, did you learn anything from last year? I said, wow, it's a big question. Don't ask me that. I've been following Johor for a long time, right? Being local, and especially with the district, with the data centers that are coming up. I'm consulting for a couple of them, and you can see the load is growing up here. And the challenge is going to be energy. Let me share my background. I spent 36 years with the Naga National, right? Starting off as an engineer and eventually coming up with an MD of a subsidiary, presently known as TNBX. And we are the guys who started the renewable energy certificates, presently known as MGARDs, MRECs, and so on. Retired 2 years ago, I thought it was a great business to work within how you bring green to customers, especially we are a country which is a voluntary market. How do you actually export to a compliance country like Germany? All right, so that's where my journey is. I've got a bad throat. I'm just going to play a small video of what we do so you get an idea of what RECs or renewable energy certificates are. Could you please?
Have you ever wondered, when you turn on your lights, where that electricity is coming from? In the United States, most electricity comes from coal, natural gas, and nuclear. And some renewable sources like hydropower, wind, and solar. No matter where electricity is generated, it is mixed together on the shared electricity grid. When you turn on your lights or your TV, you pull some of that electricity out. Once electricity is put on the grid, there's no way to know where it came from or how it was generated. All electricity is the same. If you want to green your power, though, you can do that with renewable energy certificates. These certificates are created each time 1 megawatt hour of renewable energy is generated and put on the grid. About what an average home uses in a month. The wind turbine spins, or the solar panel collects sunlight, and when enough electricity is generated, a certificate is created. This certificate proves that 1 megawatt hour of renewable energy was generated. And it embodies all the green, environmental benefits of that megawatt hour, including lower amounts of smog-causing pollution and greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide. All of these benefits are included in the certificate. Whoever owns the certificate owns that megawatt hour of renewable energy. Certificates are used by states and the federal government to track use of renewable energy. They're also used by utility green power programs to track which customers receive green power, because certificates provide the only means to know that 1 megawatt hour of renewable energy was generated on their behalf. When an individual or business buys a certificate, they're buying renewable energy and can claim all the environmental benefits of that megawatt hour. Certificates also allow wind and solar developers to build wherever the resources are, knowing they will be supported by customers from across the country. Renewable energy certificates work because cleaner air and water are worth something extra to all of us. And certificates allow us to buy these environmental benefits no matter where we live. They help bring us that much closer to true energy independence. Power from the sun, wind, and water. And that makes the future brighter for all of us.
Right. Thank you very much. I'm from Asia Carbon Exchange. We are the guys who help you register, issue, and redeem RECs. While copper brings kilowatt hours, RECs deliver green energy. Thank you.
Thank you, Nurinder, for that. So as you can see on the top right-hand corner, there is a QR code that will take you to Slido that you can put in your questions. Later, we will ensure there's enough time for the panelists to answer them. And maybe staying on with Nurinder, following on from a very good introductory video that he shared, I would like him maybe to share one example perhaps of how your organization has actually helped their client in terms of their net zero pathway, right? And in terms of meeting their own commitments by using your services.
Well, basically, what we do, we help everybody else except us. So I'll give you some examples of what we have done with respect to allow customers, Malaysian MNCs, to actually participate. Okay, right. So what do? We actually allow and assist Malaysian MNCs to allow them to export. You know, as of recently, we have got CBAM, Cross-Border Adjustment Mechanism. We've got Rishi Sunak, before he retired, saying that if you were to export to UK from 2026 and you are not from a carbon economy, we'll tax you at the border. So this is where voluntary markets require themselves to be accredited with green energy for enabling us to export. We have done many industries, especially mission industries in Penang, right? Guys like semiconductor industries supplying Intel. Intel is Scope 3 for Apple. So everybody does something along the way. So the journey is exciting, many new customers. I had a customer who was building a pharmaceutical factory, right, in Penang. He wanted 800 racks. I said, why do you want 800 racks? He said, because I'm constructing it for Mr. XYZ, which is a RE100 company, and they want to make sure my construction is clean before they even start operating. So you can see RECs is a funny way, it's an indigenous way, using a lot of blockchain and AI technology with respect to delivering energy from an offset in Johor to a company in Penang.
Thanks, that's a great example for those of you here who are thinking about moving into RECs and would like to see an actual practical application. Now I'm also going to ask Frank to share, given his background. For him, obviously, net zero and decarbonization is something that he needs to look at from a more personal or company level basis, given his operations in Pasir Gudang. And as he shared earlier, given that his HQ is in Germany, we all know how the EU especially is moving forward in terms of its net zero and decarbonization efforts. So I'm going to ask Frank to share his practical experience.
Yes, thank you. We are, all of us, from different fields, and sustainability, it's a big word. it's a big word with a big world. And different approaches can be decided by different companies. You provide green energy, you provide green rating in order to make sure that tomorrow people are living in a great greenhouse. We try as an industry to translate that into a day-to-day action. So for sure, when we talk about industry, we talk about compliance. And the first compliance that is coming to us, it's regulatory, and we need to be ready to fill up whatever documentation that any authority is asking us. And that's a tough job. And what is in front of us, behind this world sustainability and behind this reporting, is huge, guys. A few minutes before, a few hours before, you had Patrick explaining you how AI can be a support. The necessity to handle all these data definitely will push us to work with AI in the future in order to be compliant to all these regulations, especially the one coming from Europe. Now, this doesn't motivate anyone, and definitely doesn't give any recipe to success. Because at the end, we all want one thing: to be successful in our sustainable journey. Because we have no choice. We need to transform. So a lot of regulation, a lot of decision, whatever, doesn't transform us into actors. So in Sofactor Asia Pacific, we have decided to transform our actions into a sustainability direction. How? By, yes, we have global sustainability goal to follow. Our roots, our core value is about development. So how we can support everyone. My colleague here from the architect ground knows very well. You can build a wonderful house, but you have different way to build it. You can use it with plywood from trees that has been illegally cut in our forest, or you can use it with plywood that have been FSC, PEFC certified, that have been treated and enhanced by some chemical like the one we are providing through a paper that is coming from, again, PEFC, FSC resources. So it's about a culture, and that's something that you need all to understand. You cannot be sustainable if you don't put sustainability in the company culture. So how to do that? You need to interconnect everyone. Your customers, your suppliers, the communities, the employees, and the investors, because at the end it's all about money. Let's be honest. We are not going to be sustainable and lose money on a monthly basis. My colleagues from, or my supplier of tax analysis, PwC, won't be very happy if I cannot pay their bill at the end of the year, you know, when they say, oh, we do an audit, you have to pay. Or sorry, I've been very sustainable, so I'm losing a lot of money, so I cannot pay you. I don't think this is going to work for long. So we still need to interconnect all that. And yes, there's another layer that not often we are thinking about is the NGO. I think more and more private industry need to link themselves with the right consultant, the right customers, but also with some NGO that can enhance and challenge us into the activities. So that's what we have done. So that's what we are doing. We are taking craft paper. We have implemented this on plywood or NDF. So you have it certainly. You have a portion of me, or sorry, a portion of my products or our products certainly in your furniture or certainly our product help us or help you to get a house. For sure, you need certification. Compliance is a key element of sustainability. Don't be mistaken. Compliance, it's a must. We were talking, Patrick was talking about controlling, measurement. That's something that is in front of us more and more. We need to be ready for that. But not only we need to develop more into usage of what nature is giving us. I think that's something that we have forgotten, is that the nature is much more powerful than us. So we have to preserve it in a way also by using it. Doing plantation of eucalyptus, doing a plantation of acacia trees is not destroying the forest, it's managing the forest. And all these resources can be used for a better life for us. So yes, there's logo you've seen, all these icons, all these tiles are very important. You cannot, we cannot, alone fill up all these tiles, but together, and that's why I show you a slide with different actors, together we can tick these tiles. So don't be afraid, don't be frightened by 17 tiles, because these 17 tiles will allow you to work as a team, top to bottom and bottom to top. Not only the stakeholders, not only the investors, but also with your employees, with their families, with their children. So us, how we do that? Yes, we develop. Yes, we are focusing on the regulatory part of it. But we have engaged ourselves in many actions. You see at the back, zero food waste. So I know in Malaysia, we all like to finish our plate, but sometimes, already full before the nasi is finished. So we supply the food to our teams, and we teach them somehow. You know what our grandparents used to tell us? You finish your plate before you leave the table? We don't do like that, nearly, but never mind. But you have to understand we are working with people from different countries. So culture of the company bring them to this sustainability approach. It's not because you have a full plate of rice that you should leave only 50% of it. If you want 50% of it, just have for half rice. It's as simple as that. We were talking a lot about mangrove. Johor had wonderful mangrove. Johor still have a few mangrove. Johor and mangrove is very tight. We need to protect the mangrove. Protecting the mangrove in Johor is protecting Johor and protecting the Johorian. So even as a foreign company, through the activity we have with the NGO, we are focusing on the mangrove, but not only on the trees by itself, but also by bringing kids to understand how important are mangrove. And now you are telling me, yeah, but Frank, all that is blah, 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 blah. What are you really doing? But we spend money. At the end, it's about money. So you were talking about green energy. Yes, we invest in solar panel. Yes, we push our team to develop their own gardens. We have our own gardens that are managed by our teams. Nothing extraordinary, but we are trying to tick as much tile as possible from the 17 targets, link everyone around the 17 target. We will not accept any supplier that is not on the sustainable journey. This is a big no. And I think that's something that together in this room, and when we go back to our office, we need to be strong on this word. We cannot accept any suppliers that are not sustainable. We cannot accept any supply that is, oh, okay, it's cheap, so let's buy. Yeah, but it's cheap, but it's made how? From what? With who? So this is elements that are very important, because at the end it's all about people. sustainable is about people. It's not only about greenwashing. I mean, I'm not Microsoft saying that I'm carbon neutral and tomorrow I will be carbon positive. I'm carbon myself. By the way, we are all carbon, so it's going to be difficult for me to be carbon positive. But stop the green bashing. Sustainability is definitely not green bashing. Be careful about that. And if we are here in front of you today, it's also because we are not green bashers. We are there in our field to generate real sustainability. And sustainability is about people. Authorities need to generate rules and regulation. They need to generate support. But at the end, it's our teams together that generate the real sustainability. So yes, we can plant trees by generating kilowatt. You know what is kilowatt, guys? We can have solar panel on top of a roof and generate somehow CO2 saving, and that's beautiful. But if at the end you're still putting 18 degrees on your office aircon, and because Malaysia, you know, for a masale, you arrive in Malaysia, you enjoy 25, 20, 30 degrees outside. You go in the office, it's 16, 18. Guys, go to Iceland. It's fine. But don't put the aircon at 16, 18 degrees. After you get sick. And we have MC. And nobody is working. Okay, stop. That's a boss bad sentence. But again, there's no point for a company to engage itself into sustainability, put whatever million ringgit on solar panel, and at the end, let the team put the aircon at 18 degrees, switch on the lights even after they leave the office, or throw food, or use plastic when it's not necessary. So my message and our message today, sustainability is a mindset. It should be a core value. But don't forget, it's a people value, not only a regulatory value.
Thank you so much, Frank. Hopefully in that 20 minutes, you've all gotten your corporate strategies all done up. If not for 2024, put that into your 2025 budget and strategies and plans. I really like that part where he mentioned about all of us have a role to play together. And that's what really brings each and every one of you here, actually, as our audience today. Moving on some of the challenges that he shared, I'm going to ask Sali to share a little bit more in his role now as the CEO of Green Building Index. What are some of the difficult physical and transition risks that he faces when he works together with developers or regulators and so on? Because we all know that if you look at the effects of climate change, Malaysia's biggest physical risks tend to be either flooding most of the time, with other types of risks coming maybe less frequently. Transition risk is always, I guess, premised by the fact that, as shared by Frank, everybody wants to make profit at the end of the day. So how do you manage this type of risk, but still be able to come out with a high quality GBI? So let's hear it from Sali.
Yeah, thank you. For us, we start, there are a lot of challenges. Among the challenges is people's acceptance and understanding of what sustainability is about. Because for the layperson, they would jump to the conclusion, like by just having solar, you're sustainable. But actually, sustainability is more complicated than that. There's a lot more stakeholders involved. There are a lot more matrices involved. Even carbon itself is just a basic matrix. There are other indicators like water, pollution, waste, which may not have a big carbon footprint, but is equally important, like bioclimatic things, like how much animals they are and how the extinction rate of animals. So all those, we need to capture all those in a tool, and that's what we are all about. And we try to advocate that to the developers, to the general public. is quite a challenge. So we try to simplify it as much as possible, giving examples to the layperson how to do a green building. And one of the big things that we have done is that we have positioned ourselves in a very good green building, the PAM Center, which is a platinum GBI rated building. I would like to invite everyone to just, if you want to visit, please do. We have a lot of university students, school students, government departments coming to see how the building performs. Because at the end of the day, you want to have energy performance, you want to have all the sustainability features of a top-notch green building. There are two ways to do it. One is the more vernacular way, where we learn from our ancestors. Our traditional architecture is about open air, about natural ventilation, about being one with nature. The other one is the totally technological way, where you do a glass box, but you technology it wise, you engineer it in a way that it will comply. So of course, the second way is very expensive. So, but it still performs. So at the end of the day, is what we try to educate everyone is that the correct way of doing sustainability, the impactful way that you can change simple things in your building, in your everyday life to bring the maximum impact. Yeah. So we try to walk the talk and try to communicate this to all strata. It's not just about developers. Sometimes we do advocacy to even residents associations, for example. We tell people off the street, if you buy, a simple example, you are in a single-story terrace house, for example. It gets hot a lot. And we tell say, makcik wants to buy an air conditioning unit. The air conditioning unit is cheap. She buys the cheap one. And then we tell her that, hey, makcik, if you buy this air conditioning unit, it has less coils. Perhaps if you buy the one with, if you buy the one with the inverter or the more efficient one, it will be more efficient and your electricity might be cut in half. And in 1 or 2 years, you might be able to recoup your costs already. But if you buy the cheap one, which is 500 ringgit, you'll be using it, for 10 years? You'll be paying your extra for 10 years. So sometimes simple logic like that, which resonate with your bottom line, resonate with your everyday life, can bring you a long way. So I think that is our way of overcoming the challenges. Because one thing that may be very different from here and Europe, our level of society has not matured that much yet in certain areas. So we are looking at a very diverse range of people, but we want to have that sustainability message, not just for the T20 or M40, but also for the B40. So we try to educate everybody. Yeah.
Thanks so much for that. I really like that idea of how some upfront or the way you manage your resource requirements, right, can actually help you save money. And I think we really do need a lot of those stories to be told. Now, we can't always get away from the fact that with sustainability, there's always a lot of regulatory elements and compliance elements that come into play. And so we've looked at the fact that at the federal level, to some extent, even at the international or regional level, and now coming down to the state level, there are generally climate-related policies that are being developed. Some have gone into acts of parliament, some have gone into bylaws and so on and so forth. And given that Narinder handles a lot of this as part of how he manages for his customers, I thought we'll ask him to share how does he find the state in terms of climate, both at the federal and state level, what has been done so far and what more perhaps could be done to move the needle.
Mike taking a rest there. Okay, just sharing with you among the challenges we had. I was with the government for a long time, Tenaga National, and while we were there, we were embarking on a campaign of energy efficiency, right? And in 2011, when the new Act came in, the RE Act, it allowed a lot of people to partake in the business of generating green energy. In the absence of that Act, without a support, there would not have been what we have today, the amount of biomass, biogas, hydro, and solar installations. Well, the Act went through, and a lot of things came in, but what we realized was there was a lot of hue and cry with respect to, can I have the slides? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's a lot of hue and cry with respect to greenwashing. How are we managing what we are managing? And when it comes to greenwashing, just let me go to my slides here. I wanted to show something with respect to the greenhouse gas and how we addressed it at the corporate level, educating customers and the likes with respect to what we do. Okay, next slide. Okay, we bring everybody back to this, right? And this is how we started educating corporate and customers with respect to what we were doing, scope 1, 2, and 3. Now, when we did this, we were doing in 2008 what we call scope 1, energy efficiency reducing kilowatt per meter square. And then eventually when the Act came in 2011, we started doing the second one, which was doing renewable energy on the roof, basically scope 1 work. Now, I always tell everybody that this is a double-edged sword. You need to do EE first before you do RE. A lot of customers get stuck in this challenge, wanting cheap green energy for the purpose of export, failing to do the kilowatt per meter square. Now, you can see this challenge coming to Johor. Johor is going to have a lot of data centers. I think the Minister Zafrul just mentioned last week, he said, we're going to look at your PUE and your WUE, power utilization efficiency and water utilization efficiency. It's not about having a data center here. It is a power guzzler. So the government comes up with KPIs. And guy, my good friend here, building index guy, he is going to measure those KPIs in terms of matrices and find out if you are doing the right thing. Now, in the absence of doing, once you do your scope 1, this is where we come in, we assist you with imported carbon. That means whenever you buy energy from the grid, from Tenaga Nasional for matter, you are actually importing carbon into your system because you're not able to produce enough, reduce enough, you have to get it from another source. Whether it is energy, whether it's water, whether it's gas. Each one of these resources carries a footprint. In Tenaga Nasional in Peninsula, we have 0.75 tons of CO2 for every 1 megawatt that you generate from the grid from coal and gas. This is a measured quantity that is reported to UND, FCC, and so on. The reasons of this reporting is that it gets reported at COP level. The next COP is going to be in Azerbaijan. And this is where countries take on targets for themselves, NDC targets. You can see as what Malaysia has done in the last COP, we have committed ourselves to reduction by 45% by 2030. As a result of which, there's a lot of pressure on the government with respect to carrying out projects on reducing carbon. You would have noticed in the last 3 years, the Minister Nick, you can see Zafrul, you can see Gobin, you can see the Deputy Prime Minister, everybody, nearly every day speaks on how to reduce carbon. The commitment is high and the country is destined wanting to do it. I am also a consultant for renewable energy framework with ASEAN. And I must say that Malaysia is among the fastest moving with respect to wanting to get ourselves green. In the last 8 months itself, we saw 5 programs. One was the cross-border program. This is affecting Johor a lot, where you have the energy going from Johor into Singapore. Then the latest one, we call it the CRESS, Corporate Renewable Energy Supply Scheme. This is where you can produce anywhere in the country and sell it to the data centers. Now, these are the new initiatives that are coming in. Under the third-party access done by the gas system in 2017 and the utility in 2024, we will see private developers partaking with Tenaga Nasional to supply data centers or to supply load centers. This is a very far step from what has been done anywhere in ASEAN, including Philippines, which had started deregulation way back in 2010. What we have done is to address the need for us to move the economy from the middle class structure to a high-end economy. And this is where you can see things coming up from the carbon side, from the user side. I was surprised the amount of work you have done with respect to sustainability. He has covered all the slides. What we do in renewable energy is to support industries like Frank's industry so that they can be more export-oriented and be seen as a green economy. If you look at Peninsula, we are doing 0.75 tons. And then you ask the question, what is the neighbor doing? Singapore is 0.42 tons of CO2 per megawatt hour. It is a greener space to work in. Now, when a customer like a data center comes and selects an area where he wants to actually run his data center, he has a lot of commitments internationally with respect to the amount of footprint he creates for the data you use on your phone. Right? So they have to achieve certain amount of energy. So if they go to a dirty economy, which has a lot of coal and gas, they will prefer going somewhere else. You can see Sarawak is booming. Why? Sarawak is doing 0.19 tons of CO2 per megawatt hour. Sabah is still much better than us. Sabah is doing, they don't have coal, 0.55 tons of CO2. So there's a lot of push and pressure within the federal government to do a lot of things in Peninsula. In Johor itself, you're going to have data centers up to 5,000 megawatts. Now, if you look at the total energy the whole country has, is about 20,000 today. With 5,000 itself, you're increasing within the next 5 years, 20% of load within Johor. This is a huge amount of growth. And with this huge amount of growth comes a lot of responsibility, social responsibility. It comes a lot of thinking with respect to human resource, putting the right things in place. Water is going to be scarce. That has to be challenged. So all of this driven by energy. So energy addresses three main things. One, in terms of the SDG goals, it talks about the water. Energy supplies clean water, and that's where it is. It talks about innovation. There's a lot of innovation when you were to do what we are doing in third-party access. That means, how do you bring energy from Laos to Singapore, LTMS? The physical electron doesn't move. Technology moves it from Laos to Thailand to Malaysia to Singapore, where Singapore buys green energy from Laos, generated in Laos, in Singapore. And you have to build a customer in Singapore. So technology plays a very important role. It's only when communication and kilowatt merit, the world changed. The last 5 years, there's been a lot of communication between the fiber and the copper. And this has changed the world the way we are seeing it now. And what we have seen in the data centers is digitizing the economy, digitizing the kilowatt hour, and that is where we will see the changes that we want to see in the future on sustainability.
Thank you so much. At least it's good to know that the Malaysian government may not have all the tick boxes there, but they're trying to do as many as they can in promoting the sustainability agenda. So now bring it to a little bit more of a local level. As was shared this morning, I'm sure all of you are familiar with the Johor Green Deal that was launched last year and the various initiatives that underpin it. We also know the state budget is coming up, probably by next month, if not in December. So I'm going to first ask Patrick perhaps, because since he's got an actual manufacturing operations here in Pasir Gudang, what would be on his wish list insofar as sustainability is concerned to be included in the state budget?
Ask me what I want to be included in the budget. More incentive? I think that's what we could expect. But before that, I think we need more clarity. We need leaner system. Malaysia is everything can. Okay? Boleh. But it can be a bit complex. Everything possible, but it can be a bit complex. For foreigner investment to join Malaysia, which is a wonderful country, it can be coming from Europe, coming from US or some other countries like that. Could be a bit tricky to understand which door to open, which door to close, who going to meet, who is going to sign, who is after this one. You know, we need, if the budget has to bring some value added for more sustainable world, it has to be also leaner world, simpler system to allow everyone to perform the sustainability journey. Yes, money is key element. We put solar panel is not just to have a nice picture from a drone. We put solar panel because we are saving energy, because it's good, it's the core value of the company, and definitely because there's in Malaysia an incentive called the GITA. Unfortunately, after 6 months of running the solar panel, document doesn't arrive yet. So I think a budget is not only numbers, it's also method, it's also processes that need to be simplified, clarified for everyone, private and even civil, to focus, and even people, to focus on their sustainable journey. Make it clearer. Right. To be sustainable, it has to be as simple as possible, and you will see that everyone will be committed toward the journey of sustainability. Okay. So I hope a colleague from Sustainable Johor, because being in Johor, for Johorian is very important, so we need the support of Sustainable Johor in order to simplify all these elements of process.
Thank you. And maybe also a wish list from Sali, perhaps in relation to GBI. What would you like the state to help out with?
For GBI, the wish list is there will be more green buildings. And how to do that, I think, is why green buildings is because that once you have a green building, you have a lot of impact. Because every activity is done in buildings. Even your transportation is linked to buildings, to and fro to work, your water, your energy, everything. So I would like to quote our conversation just now. We had a conversation that the previous year, there has been a lot of movement in Penang with regards to green buildings. And this is because the Penang Green Building Council made it mandatory for submissions for new buildings to be rated, green building rated, either gold or silver, which is very high. And yes, industry scrambling to actually meet the requirement. But what it has done is that everybody is moving very fast. Even if they can't make the gold or silver, they will make certified definitely. Because actually, to have a certified building is not far from your base, because everybody should be following the MS 1525 in the Uniform Building Bylaws. Yeah. So our wish list is that perhaps Sustainable Johor can come out with a plan whereby in certain core areas it must be mandatory for it to be rated green, and perhaps in certain industries as well, because we have in industries too. And looking at what Narinder said about data centers, yes, one of the unfortunate things why people come to Malaysia is for data centers is that we don't have very stringent environmental controls. Other places, they really control the environment, so to have a data center, it's not very easy to get it approved. But here, we are still finding our way. We hope that one of the key elements that will be put into the budget is the green rating of data centers. Because without that, we don't want people to take advantage of us. Whereas we want the economic development and we want to be in line with the world development of everything, but we don't want to be taken advantage. And historically, there has been a long history of people with more economic power taking advantage of people in this part of the world, and we don't want that to repeat.
Yeah, thanks for that. Before I pass it back to the MCs to take us through some of the Q&As, and if any of you haven't put up your questions, please do. I guess we should ask our Bangsa Johor to also share maybe what he would like to be on his wish list for the state budget. Yes.
I think one thing that will happen, and we have been forewarned in this budget, I would see there would be an indication when carbon tax would come in. One of the things that drove Singapore to where they are in terms of the good prices of renewable energy and that grew Singapore was moving carbon tax from $5 Singapore to $25 now. And they've already warned there's going to be $48 and so on and so forth. So economics plan themselves. We don't have a carbon tax anywhere in ASEAN except Singapore. And I think Malaysia will be the second country in ASEAN to adopt it. Not that we need it, we require it for us to do trade internationally. And that I will foresee coming up in this budget, right? That will be one key element that will change the way we look at sustainability in a very different form because it has a price tag if you don't conform. Right? Thank you.
Thanks for that. So maybe I'll ask the MC to highlight maybe some of the Q&As and to give our panelists a chance to answer questions from the audience.
Sure, Mr. Moderator. Thank you for this opportunity. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as said, if you have any questions to be added, okay, I have few questions actually. There's a 14 questions overall. So I shall take the most likable questions here. It's from Anonymous. Okay, the question, may I know the extent of enforcement being done for the green initiative policies, especially concerning post-development maintenance? Shall I repeat? May I know the extent of enforcement being done for green initiative policies, especially concerning post-development maintenance?
Thank you for that very good question. Post-development maintenance is important. That's why when we developed the Green Building Index a few years ago, other tools such as LEED, for example, from the US Green Building Council did not need a recertification. So once you get the version 1 of LEED, you can actually, your building is green forever. But in Malaysia, we know that people change things, people like to modify, people don't maintain so well. What we have done with the Green Building Index, every year, every 3 years, you need to recertify and recheck. So we don't want people to, when they construct the building, it is very nice, it's very efficient. And then after, while they're using it, they change, and when they use it, they don't comply to what they have promised and whatnot. So if you don't, then you will lose it. So by going Green Index certification, that is one way to ensure that your maintenance, your FM is working, the people that are maintaining your building understands what it's all about, and you maintain all the promises that you have made early on when you're constructing the building, so that it will continue on and on. And some of our, as we have been around 15 years, some of our buildings have been renewed about 2 times already, every 3 years. So that's the way to go, because I think, again, you talk about culture, Frank. Here, our maintenance culture is very poor. So we need perhaps to force people to maintain, yeah? And I think that this is one way to help you push people to maintain their buildings.
Thanks.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. Thank you for that answer. Okay, there's a question to Mr. Narinder. What's your views on nature-based carbon credits? How do you compare to RECs, and would you recommend to your clients?
A question very aptly put. We tried having Malaysian carbon credits in Tenaga when I was there. Right? What happened is we couldn't find buyers until we came up a rack with an international standard called IRAC. And I got Razif here with me. Right, he's taken up my place in TNBX. He'll be next then. And we branded it with a brand called MRAC, the underlying still a European standard IRAC. It gave a bit of trust to the buyers. Generally, the buyers for your racks are from the European market, MNCs, who need to comply with their country's compliance culture. For example, HSBC operates here, but because they have committed themselves to be RE100, they need to buy racks locally. For them to have a bit of trust, with respect, because it's a branding trust. A rack is basically a trust in you and the generator. We as the guys who produce and assist in certification, we go and do an audit and so on and so forth. So having a rack, the way China has recently done, China has pulled out of the IRAC market and have a local rack. The challenge is going to be when you bring the goods at the border in Europe, and when they're going to ask you, what is the carbon credit for this particular device or equipment you have, and you show a rack that is not internationally recognized, and you want to trade in that market, you're going to have a lot of difficulty in getting into the market. It could be another tax on you that side. So I think Malaysia did the right thing in adopting an international rack standard, IRAC, but branding it with a brand called MRAC, right, that is bundled with the utility tariff. So you can buy racks in bundle and unbundled form. Right?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nino. And the next question would be, what can we do in industry for zero food waste? Does composting helps? Mr. Frank, please.
What can we do? Big question. But we can work together. As simple as that. There's no secret recipe, even if it's a very famous cake place in Malaysia. There's no secret recipe, and it deserves from all of us to work together. Can we be fully carbon neutral? Yes, we can. But let's be officially and really real carbon neutral industry and not fake one just based on standards that are popping up left and right, based on some publication that cannot be controlled. And that's why the new regulation that we have in front of us, coming from Europe, coming from other countries, that will be implemented at one point or the other, because as you mentioned, our customers are in Europe, our customers are in US, our customers are all over the world. Malaysia is exporting. So Malaysia needs to be compliant within Malaysia, but also for the customer outside. So all these compliances and all this reporting will have to be implemented in Malaysia. So only together we will be able to be carbon neutral. Is there a secret recipe? No. There's only one thing. Work. Work honestly into a sustainable target. And being honest is being also sometimes a bit tough to each other, challenge each other. And that's something that perhaps in this part of the world we need to learn to be. So yes, let's continue to challenge each other, and the sustainability road will be clear in front of us.
Thank you, Mr. Frank Molto. As simple as that, work together. Okay, next question would be, how can net zero commitments drive business growth instead of becoming a financial burden or obstacle for your company? Any one of the panelists?
No, because for us in the building industry, we always sell that green buildings actually make you money, save you money. Because not just about energy saving that's given. I mean, like all of us here agree that energy, once we are not even paying the real price of our energy, is subsidized. But once even at subsidized, you do have a lot of savings, especially for large complexes, large buildings and whatnot. But even with regards to the biggest actually element that is productive is actually the productivity of the people. Because when you are in a green building, you are supposed to feel better, your productivity is supposed to be higher, you have less sick building syndrome. So all these are actually bottom line affecting factors that actually push sustainability forward. Because if you start to feel sleepy, perhaps your air change is not good enough, there's too much carbon dioxide in your ventilation system. That's why in certain areas, in certain buildings, you feel very fresh. If you go to a resort, you feel very fresh because your air change is fresh air, everything is there. It's engineered to be that way, but you don't notice it. But in certain buildings, you feel tired, you feel non-energetic, and that actually reflects in the company's bottom line, which is the most important thing. And I believe that if you look at a holistic approach, that is the way forward for us to push this agenda of sustainability. It's not something that affects your bottom line, but it's not something that affects your bottom line negatively. It's something that will actually promote your company or your enterprise to be more productive in terms of profits.
Let me add something. I'm totally agree with you. Up front, there's a cost. There's no doubt. So how we generate payback? Manpower is a key element. Yes, everybody talk about Industry 4.0, AI, whatever, but bottom line, you need people on the production line. If today somebody working in Pasir Gudang is coming from GB Town at 7:30 in the morning, is going to be jammed in Permas during 1 hour, he may arrive late or may have unfortunate road accident on his motorbike or catch flu because it's raining. Why? Because there's no public transport. If there's an effective public transport, which is a sustainable way to generate a movement, my worker will arrive safe, in good shape, and on time, if it's effective public transport, for sure. But that's a way to have the payback. But not only that, we were talking about ethical way to buy. Is a choice. Why do we engage our teams, their families, their children into cleaning and planting in the mangrove? Because we want to bring a mindset, we want to bring an ethical approach. And I think all these grown approaches, investments, public health, building, living in a nice house, comfortable house, generating green power, education, supporting through NGO, all that create a value that is difficult to measure at the beginning, but at the end is a payback for the industry.
Perhaps one last question.
One last question. Okay, here goes. Do you think EIA Act needs to be reviewed to include sustainable practices? They state EIA Act.
I'm going to just answer this. I don't know what EIAX is, but I know what is going to change coming 2024, right? We spoke about sustainability, about reducing carbon, and I thought there would be a tax coming in soon. But what has changed already? The EECA Act 2024 has already been approved in Parliament, is going through stages of coming up with the subsidies. EECA Act, the major change is not going to measure kilowatt per meter square on scope 1. You're going to be measured in kilojoules. There's the amount of heat you use back into the plant and so on and so forth. So this is going to be audited. It's going to have more clarity to it. The last act was 2008. Now, 14 years later, we are having a new act. So put your eyes on the new act. That new act is an act that will reduce permanently the amount of carbon footprint that you have within the building itself.
Things will change. I mean, whatever the act, it will change. In Europe, we are not talking about only measurement anymore for the new reporting. We are talking about commitment into your strategy. So regulation won't be only in showing what you have done, but also showing what you. And that's something that will change also the way we write the act in Malaysia, because it's another way to generate report where I think we need all to learn. And how to measure commitment into the strategy, it's going to be a challenge. So don't worry, we will have to work more.
Thank you.
Maybe I add to this because I think the question is not right. There is no such thing as the EIA Act. The EIA is actually a process actually for development under the Environmental Quality Act 1974. So you have to have an EIA to develop some area. So if you want that development falls under certain condition, then you have a environmental impact assessment. So that I think that's the question. So to answer that, actually, we are consistently changing the parameters of what the nation looks at sustainability. So the act is under Jabatan Alam Sekitar. Once they look at all the stakeholders and the parameters, especially with regards to other things, like all the other acts, we have Energy Efficiency Act, we have RE Act. They are looking at a holistic thing. The Environmental Quality Act is also to look at other things that are not covered by these other acts, which are biodiversity, for example. So if you develop something in a certain place, biodiversity plays a role. So these elements of biodiversity, elements of community and whatnot, is actually changing as we grow, and actually is taken into consideration in the planning process, basically. So it's not just one act. All these acts actually work in unison for development, actually. And that is a part of a larger sort of conversation, which is something what I think the theme of what we are all about here today, people from different industries working together to form a change in the way that we work so it becomes better. Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm sure you've enjoyed those deep insights over the last hour or so. My final takeaway is that there is no planet B, right? There's only one Earth. We all inhabit it. We are all in it together. So let's work together to make it a safer place for ourselves, for our children, and for the generations to come. Thank you, and I'll pass you back to the MC.
With that being concluded, thank you to our speakers and moderator for that session. And once again, introducing our moderator for this evening, Mr. Manohar Johnson. Thank you. And our speakers, Mr. Franco Molto, Engineer Nevinder Singh Joel, and Architect Salih Arisarkum. Thank you so much. Once again, a big round of applause to our speakers and moderator. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we will continue straight away for the next session. And now that we've gained insights from our speakers just now, it is time to deepen the conversation with our upcoming panel discussion. Oh, there's a photo session. I didn't notice that. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, next up, ladies and gentlemen, our panelists for this next sessions are inviting to the stage the moderator, Professor Insigne Dr. Sharifah Rafida from the UTM, and the speakers are Insigne Muhammad Razif Abdul Halim, he's the Managing Director of TNBX Sundian Berhad Malaysia, Mr. Tam Chi Aun, the founder and CEO, Ditrolic Energy Malaysia, and Encik Nur Hafifi Jalal from UEM Lesra Berhad Malaysia. And they will delve into the topic, enhancing renewable energy reliability, intermittency, and grid integration. Ladies and gentlemen, let's explore the diverse perspectives on this important matter. Take it away, ladies and gentlemen.
Testing. Hello. Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good afternoon everyone. I'm Sharifah from University Technology Malaysia and it's my pleasure to be your moderator for this important session. I hope you're all excited to dive into today's discussion on enhancing renewable energy reliability, intermittency and grid integration. Yeah? So it's a very important topic. And as we look toward a future where renewable energy plays a central role in powering our lives, we must ensure these systems are not only sustainable, but also reliable. Yeah? So we're very fortunate today. We have three incredible experts with us today who have hands-on experience in making renewable energy work seamlessly in this real world. So let me introduce our panelists. So I have IR Muhammad Razif Abdul Halim, Managing Director of TNBX Sdn Bhd. Secondly, I have Mr. Tam Chi Aun, Founder and CEO of Ditrolic Energy. And the third speaker is Mr. Nur Hafifi bin Jalal, Head and Business Development of UEM Lestra Berhad. Yeah? And of course, we'd love to hear from you as well. If you have any questions from our panels today, so feel free also to scan the QR code later on, where you can also post questions to our panels later on. Yeah? So now, without further ado, we'll continue with our discussion today. So I would like
incorporated way back in 2019. The first managing director is the one that you saw just now up the stage. I hope he's still here in the room, Mr. Nirinder himself. Basically, back in 2019, the NBAC has been formed as a wholly owned subsidiary of Tenaga Nasional to enter into the sustainable solution space, where we focus on renewable and energy efficiency solutions. We pride ourselves as what we say the downstream area of renewable and sustainable energy. For example, we try to add value on the existing green solutions that already in the market. For example, beside me here is Mr. Tam. Sorry for that. Beside me here is Mr. Tam, the owner of Ditrolic. He is one of our customer in supply agreement of renewable energy. What we do is that in Malaysia, we have more than 200 asset investors, or we call RPVI, who invest in solar rooftop. What we do is that we manage the agreements, we manage the billings, and we manage the collections on behalf of the asset owner, like Mr. Tam over here, and then to the customer or to the end users, we give the seamless of billings to them, and they only pay one single unified bill. So that's what we do in terms of renewable energy. And at the same time, we are one of the charge point operators for TNB installed EV chargers. And we don't only provide our services to TNB installed chargers, but we also provide our services, be it platform services, to any other asset owners in terms of EV chargers as well. And then we are going big in renewable energy certificates as well, where we are currently operating the government-backed scheme called Green Energy Tariff, where you can obtain bundle green energy in your electricity bills. For example, we have a certain amount of green electricity being generated in Malaysia, injected to the grid, and then through REC, we can assign this green energy to the interested end users like you guys, right? So with REC, you can now claim that your scope 2 carbon emission is green. Your electricity consumption comes from green sources. That's what we do. And then in terms of energy efficiency front, we are providing solutions in terms of virtual energy manager. It's a platform, it's a dashboard where you can see or you can monitor your electricity consumption in real time. Not only the whole building's electricity consumption, you can specify which area you want to monitor. For example, if your office building have 20 stories, you can focus which stories consuming the most electricity and at what time. And then in terms of equipment, you can know which equipment is the electricity guzzler. This is made possible by VEM, but VEM does not reduce the kilowatt hour consumption per square meter. It only gives you the visibility. So this solution is good for the energy manager of that building in order to decide what to do next. Okay? So we are exploring what other solutions that can benefit, that can amplify the take-up rate of renewable energy as well as energy efficiency in Malaysia. Thank you.
Thank you so much, IR Razif. Yeah, so very interesting, virtual energy manager. Yeah, so I heard the coming EECA, Energy and Efficiency Conservation Act. We need to have more in-house energy managers. Yeah, so I believe this virtual energy manager will be very useful. And regarding RECs, I think it's making renewable energy more accessible to many people, especially those addressing greenhouse gas, scope 2 and so on. Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Razif. So I would like to turn to Mr. Tam next. Diatrolic Energy has been a pioneer in the renewable energy sector here in Malaysia. Yeah? Could you introduce Diatrolic to us and tell us what exciting technology advancement is Diatrolic exploring, particularly if you have something in energy storage to ensure a reliable and consistent supply of renewable energy?
Yeah, thank you, Prof. My name is Tam. I'm the CEO of Diatrolic Energy. So Diatrolic Energy is a locally grown Johor company, actually. That's why I'm here supporting the event. So we are a more regional energy transition company. That's what we call ourselves, because we are doing more than solar, and we are moving into energy storage solution, carbon solution, and things like that. So in terms of our background, we have done a lot of solar. We are one of the largest solar developer in the region. We have deployed a lot of solar systems selling electricity to a lot of end user by installing solar on their roof, as well as owning solar farms around the region as well. So we operate in 6 countries currently. We operate in Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Philippines, China, and also we have solar farms in Bangladesh as well. So our job is to sell green energy. So some of the buildings, maybe some of the famous buildings that we power, to give you an idea, we sell electricity to all the airports in Malaysia. So if you see like Penang Airport, Langkawi Airport, Kota Kinabalu, those are systems that belongs to us. We sell electricity to infrastructure buildings. We sell electricity to a hospital, a data center in Singapore, a water treatment plant in Manila. We sell electricity to many types of building ports. Johor is, this year we are investing a lot in Johor. Johor rooftop solar. I think we are targeting to deploy close to 100 million ringgit. So some of the project that is upcoming in Johor, including ports, solar for ports, solar for theme parks. Okay, I won't tell you which one. All the theme parks,
Not Legoland,
including that as well. Some famous hotels, right? Under the Khazanah, so Disaru Coast, basically, is upcoming. So Johor, and a lot of factories in Pasir Gudang. So basically, to give you an idea, those are the customer that we sell to. We also sell to like automotive factory in Indonesia. So we sell electricity on the consumer side. So we are a power producer, but we are more closer to the customer end. If this is utility, and this is the consumer, we are closer to the consumer. So that's why we do all this direct deal with our customers. So we also own one of the largest solar farm in Malaysia currently in Perak. That's 136 megawatt that is operated by us. We also, currently we are operating close to a 300 megawatt of solar plant regionally. So we have asset management capability as well. In terms of interesting technology, this is a good time to ask this question. Tomorrow we will launch one of our 360-degree energy transition platform program. It's a single software where you can do all your energy transition activities inside, from solar generation, battery management, carbon tracking, smart building. Is all under one platform, under one login. You go in and you can see all your, you can track your consumption, you can track your abatement, you can track your carbon, you can fill up your scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. Basically, all your energy transition journey can be fulfilled under our single platform. That will be launched by the Deputy Prime Minister tomorrow in the iGEM in KL. So that's the thing that we do, interesting technology. Energy storage is one of them, relating to the topic today. So we see a lot of energy storage projects that is up and coming in Malaysia. I think one of the first one that you see is in Sabah recently, right? They have awarded Sabah because there is a mismatch between generation and load. So they have actually did a 400 megawatt hour, I think 400 or 500 megawatt hour project, which is one of the largest in the region. That cost is about 600 million, I read. So that's something that is used to strengthen the grid and also to shift to cover for the lack of generation in Sabah region. So you can see that's one example of project that is coming in Sabah, where the generation cannot meet the peak load in some time during the year. So that's one of the function of energy storage. In Johor, we don't have this problem. Johor has a lot of generation, as everybody know. I think I read somewhere, I think TMB published the data, they have, I don't know, 70% more than what Johor needs or something like that. So that's why it's actually not surprising that a lot of data center is built in Johor. So because Johor is literally a powerhouse of power generation. But we have one problem. A lot of the power generated in Johor comes from coal, right? So we have a big coal plant in Johor at the western side. So that's one of the coal plants. So Johor grid is quite dirty. So just now we were mentioning 0.7 ton. I think Narinder, he mentioned Peninsula is dirty, the grid. I think Johor, unfortunately, in terms of energy mix, I believe is more than 0.7 because we don't have hydro, a lot are coming from coal. Maybe Johor is close to 1 ton per megawatt hour. So unfortunately, this is a problem that we have here, and it'll be interesting to discuss how we will resolve this problem.
Very interesting, yeah, Mr. Tam. So we can see, well, we get a heads up, yeah? The new 360 energy transition system is going to be launched tomorrow, and I guess we get a heads up on what's coming from Mr. Tam, yeah? All right, so moving on, Mr. Hafifi, you're no stranger to large-scale renewable energy projects with UEM Lestra Berhad. How is your team addressing intermittency through innovation? So we'd love to hear about the technology that you have put in place. Yeah?
Thank you, Prof. But before I answer your question, I would like to introduce my organization. Since we will be developing our catalyst project for NETR here in Johor, so I just want everyone to get familiar with UM Lestra.
Yeah, please.
So we are the energy transition investment platform for UEM Group, which is a wholly owned company by Khazanah National Berhad. So we will be focusing in renewable energy, green mobility, and also energy efficiency. So those are our three main core business. So we will start off with renewable energy because that is the sexy theme these days. Now back to your question. How do we address the system reliability? The short answer to that would be battery storage. But the deeper conversation would be how you design the battery storage. So with that, we may need something which is not talked often in terms of what we will be planning to do is to do more of predictive analytics. Right. So what we will do is we will be participating in the corporate renewable energy supply scheme for our catalyst project. So we will probably be opting for the firm generation option. That being said, so we will be installing a battery storage in our plant. And in order for us to size up our plant, so we will be focusing more on the behavior of the site, the irradiance, hourly potential generation of the site, so that we will know how much to generate and how much to store in our battery system, so that we can give a firm output to the grid. Contrary to popular belief, people will know that Johor is actually a powerhouse, but what people do not know is the fact that the grid is heavily congested. So by having a battery storage and knowing the power flow within the state, so since you are producing about close to 6 gig in Johor, and you are also absorbing about 6 gig within Johor for the data centers, so all the energy generated will be flowing back within Johor, and that's what makes the grid heavily congested. So if I were to produce, let's say, 1 gigawatt of solar energy, how much would it go to the grid and how much would it be stored in the battery system in order for that plant not to disturb the stability of the grid? So that would be the question that we need to address. And battery storage is heavily talked about recently because of the CREST program. But designing a battery storage system is not something that is straightforward. It requires a lot of iteration. It requires a lot of simulation so that we will size it up just nice to hit the financial return spot. I will stop right there, and we'll pick it up later.
Very interesting, right? So it's not only about having a battery storage to ensure reliability, but it's also the design of the battery storage, considering all the demand factor and so on. So this is one of the, I guess, one of the innovations as well as R&D that people are also still working on. Right, so we talk about having a smart battery storage system just now, taking into consideration the in and out. So let's talk about smart grid. I think the topic also geared towards smart grid. So IR Razif, TNBX has been at the forefront of smart grid implementation, I believe. Maybe you could walk us through how your team is using smart grid technologies to manage renewable energy distribution and enhance grid reliability.
Thank you for the questions. Basically, in terms of smart grid, the NBX per se does not play into that area as of yet. But in answering your questions regarding what smart grid is all about, if I ask the audience now, who can answer me? What is smart grid? I see nobody is not facing me now. Nobody don't want to have eye contact with me. When we mention smart grid, what is smart grid actually? Okay, to me, the grid is considered smart when it can manage the intermittency that is being created by our renewable energy system. Not all renewable energy system is intermittent. Hydro is okay, 24/7. But what we have intermittency now in terms of renewable energy supply is coming from solar, be it ground mounted, be it rooftop, as well as the generation coming from biogas and biomass, right? Yeah. Okay. So, for example, just imagine your solar plant, the maximum generation is only in Malaysia when we calculate the radiation, when you do your financial modeling and whatnot. Mr. Tam can correct me if I'm wrong. Hafifi can correct me if I'm wrong as well. The most generation you can generate is at 3.5 sun hours per day. The remaining 21.5 hours, where are you going to get the supply? Okay? And then normally, for example, if you are talking about third-party access, if you are asking 50 megawatt from the RED or renewable energy developer, they will size up their plant up to 50 megawatt. But the generation of 50 megawatt is only within that 3.5 sun hours period. So how this will be managed by the grid, so that that 50 megawatt is being can be consumed by you, where your operation is 24/7. This is where one of the solution is battery, where the generation coming from renewable energy, if it's not being consumed, if it's not being utilized by the end user, it can be stored. Okay, that's what smart grid is all about. And hence, that's the reason why when the guidelines or regulations of CRES being issued by Energy Commissions recently, the battery is proposed to be at grid level. And even if the battery is at RED level, the management of the battery, if I'm not mistaken, don't quote me, because nobody have a clear direct interpretation of the guideline as of yet, in terms of CRES guideline, is managed by the grid system operator. So the RED players like Lestra or even Detrolic, their main concern now is how much they can produce using their assets. So that's the way we can see it. At the NBX, how we can manage this is how we manage the supply and demand, be it via billing, be it via demand response, and whatnot. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's very insightful. Mr. Tam, how about your perspective on this smart grid? Do Ditrolic, for example, you're using smart grid, or how is it you're affected by this smart grid? Maybe you can give your opinion as well.
Yeah, I think in many ways we are seeing the development of smart grid in the system, right? In many countries as well that we operate in. In Malaysia, we don't call it smart grid. People don't name it smart grid, but you see, you know, a concept like that have been introduced within us. You know, sometimes you read newspaper, but actually it's a smart grid concept, but sometimes you don't really realize it, right? For example, recently you have seen some, I think UEM has a net zero industrial park that you try to do, right? So that's smart grid in a certain way, right? So it could not be, I don't know the details, but it could not be net zero without being having the smart grid features. Because in a smart grid, you need the generation to talk to consumption, to talk to the grid, to talk to, you know, standby equipment, talk to battery. So basically that's smart grid. In Malaysia, we have the luxury of having a grid supply as the backup in most location in the country. So we don't have a pressing need for a fully self-sufficient system in Malaysia, right? You see that UM at Restra. I think you see that in there's a Sime Darby project in Guthrie, SD Guthrie in Kerian, Perak. So that's also it's also a smart grid because they try to be net zero. Same concept. You have solar, you have your demand management, you have your monitoring, you have your IoT, maybe you have your battery. If everything fails, there's a grid coming in, right? So that's also smart grid, right? So smart grid, you will see this happening more and more around us, right? These are features of bits and pieces of the smart grid feature. Whatever we are doing and TMBX is doing energy monitoring. Those are features, parts of smart grid also. To share a bit more experience, like a firm smart grid that my company is currently designing and trying to implement is in Indonesia, actually, not in Malaysia. So we are trying to do a smart grid for aquaculture project by the Indonesia government, working with some utility company in one of the islands in Indonesia. So even though it's an island, it's a big island, consumption is very big. You are running like, 1,000 hectare of farms, right? Water, ponds. So you run a lot of motor. So that is supposed to be 100% net zero operation as well. So there is no luxury of grid. So basically, everything has to be self-sufficient, including wind. So wind power is there, so to give us diversity of sources, so that we can optimize the size of the battery. So these are the things that you see happening more and more in the maybe some rural area, and also because of the net zero requirement and the net zero team of many companies and government, you will see such smart grid coming up in some of the franchise captive industrial park as well. So this is my sharing. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tam. So I go to Mr. Hafifi. I think the battery storage that you mentioned just now is also part of smart grid. And I guess when you mentioned you are doing the forecasting of demands, are you talking about AI, machine learning as well? So maybe you can elaborate more on Lestra smart grid initiatives. Yeah?
I think before I answer that question, I think it will be best to understand what does it mean to be smart. So to me, and I think all of us would concur, is the fact that to be smart, you do need the knowledge. You need the knowledge and your ability to apply that knowledge. So in order to come out with a smart grid system, first thing that you need to have is knowledge, which is data. So that's why, if you can see, there are some initiatives being done, like for example, TMB to change your meter into smart meters. That will be step number one, which to gain knowledge, to gain data on your usage and whatnot. The second part will be to apply that knowledge. So once TMB can see your data pattern, they can actually know your regular activities or your typical consumption monthly. And if there is something off, then they'll know something is not right happening in that particular household. Theft can be identified. Bitcoin mining, illegal Bitcoin minings can be identified, can be isolated. To a certain extent, our grid do have a certain level of intelligence in it. Like for example, how it will react if there is any disturbance. So even TMB, they have actually programmed their system to be able to handle any kind of a disturbance. So they call it protection scheme, for example. So same thing goes with our system as well. What we need to do is to gain more data. Site data, like I mentioned earlier, on how we calculate the irradiance of that particular site. And we don't go by typical 1 year, one simulation per se. We will do almost hourly simulation just to capture the trending of the site throughout the year in order for us to come up with the right sizing for the battery. That will and we also couple it with the operation of the system. So I'm not sure whether you guys have heard this, but before you actually build a solar farm, you need to do some simulation studies. It starts with a PSS1, which is a straightforward steady state. Then PSS2, when you start doing transient state. So that, and coupled with the irradiance data, you'll be able to know and to design the perfect storage design for your particular plant. But again, just to recap, for a system to be smart and to have certain level of intelligence, starts off with gathering data. And for TMB, they did that with smart meter. For our plant, what we will do is probably put up more sensors to understand the plant better, and for us to actually provide the firm output that we desire, and to make sure that the system will not be affected by the operation of our plant. That's goal number one. And that's how we can, in order for us to achieve that, we need all the information or the knowledge that we could possibly get, in order for us to make our system better in the future.
So thank you very much. So it's very enlightening, understanding the demands, and I just noticed also, like I think last month TNB just changed the power meter at my house so that we can monitor it by using our mobile phones nowadays. So I guess that's one of the way for the government or for the TNB to understand the profile of our demand usages, and of course to balance the grid and other things. So it's very good to know. And I think we as the consumer also, we can also play a role by doing energy efficiency in our house and other things as well. So I think we actually have covered a bit on demand response as well, based on that. So I would like to skip and go to the topic of interconnected system. So the idea of linking grids, so people have talked about linking grids across regions, to allow for resource sharing and stabilize renewable energy supply. So Mr. Tam, what's your take on interconnected grids? Do you think it's practical? And do you think that it's important for regional and national interconnections, to have these interconnected grids so that we can balance our renewable energy supply?
The answer is yes, definitely. Renewable energy is intermittent, it's not stable. So when you share it across a larger area, you increase the diversity factor in terms of consumption and also generation. So that basically help to even out the usage across a larger area. So that is the concept, right? So if you are a small country like Singapore, for example, you definitely cannot have your own, big solar power plant, or even if you cover up the whole Singapore, it also becomes a problem for them because of no interconnected grid, right? To give everyone an example. So Malaysia is much more fortunate in this case because our country is quite big, from north to east, north to south, east to west. So we have more diversity, but still it's not enough. I think we still need to link up the whole ASEAN to share the power, to let the power flow. So that's a concept at least, but it's not as easy as we think, right? It's a big undertaking. If you look at historically, inter-country grid is very complex, right? First of all, it's a different country. So why should I connect to you? What is the motivation for me to connect to you? That's one thing, right? So, okay, we can hold our hand together. So if we don't collapse together, or we can share the resources together, that's one reason. But grid are inherently very expensive. So if you want to connect to another country, it's in the hundreds of millions. Starting price probably hundreds of millions. Usually you end up with billions of dollars, ringgit and dollars. So who will pay for all this? Who will pay for all this interconnection between say, Perlis and Thailand? Why should I connect to you? So it's like building a road, a nice road, but if there's no traffic, who will pay for the road, right? So that's the interconnection question. So you must have the volume to justify the connection. Because electricity, if I'm self-sufficient, I don't need to sell to you. I don't need to cross the road, right? So that is the key issues. So there are interconnection that are more justified than others. Like maybe Johor, Singapore is a justified interconnection, mainly from Johor to Singapore, not from Singapore to Johor, right? So we also need to know the flow. The flow is naturally will flow from the cheaper location to the more expensive location, right? So Johor have cheaper cost of energy. If we build an interconnector, by right, the economic justification is Johor will flow to Singapore. So Singapore flow to Johor maybe only in an emergency case, right? So this is the concept of interconnected grid, to let everybody know in a layman term. But today's world is a bit different when you talk about renewable energy, because the Johor-Singapore interconnector, the driver for that grid is not only cheaper energy, but Singapore wants green energy. So that is a different driver altogether. So that would, we can argue that is the economic driver for somebody to build the Johor-Singapore connection, right? So it's much more viable, Johor to Singapore. But green have its certain requirement as well. So green is a bit weird, it's not any brown energy. So people who buy brown energy, they don't, it's just, you just flow it over. We don't care so much how you do it. But green, there is a certain protocol, how you justify, how you certify, TNBX will know very well, bundle green or unbundle green. So these are all very important for end user. So that's why not only the physical line have to be there, the harmonization of policy and market need to be there for the green to be recognized. Because green people are very particular about what type of green they are getting. I would summarize that interconnection have two challenges. One is the cost. Second is the harmonization of the policy, of the market. Because for power to flow, you need to have a market, an open and transparent market to flow between each other, so that the policy, people can recognize the electron when you flow there. It's not just dumping electron. You have to really account for every single electron, especially when it's green. So I'll stop there. So basically, this is my take.
Thank you, Mr. Tam. Very insightful. I think we also have racks, right? Which is you can already classify your renewable energy and you can sell it to others. So I would like to hear from Ayah Razif, especially from TNBX perspective, since TNB is also managing the grids and so on. What is your opinion on these interconnected systems? Do you think it's practical? Do you think it's doable? And what would be the way forward on this?
Okay, thank you, Prof, regarding the questions. Basically, let's go back to the fundamentals and objectives. Why this region or ASEAN regions require regional grid, or we call it ASEAN grid. Let's go back to energy trilemma. What consists of energy trilemma? One is security of the supply. When you have the security of the supply, we go to affordability of the supply. And when you have security and affordability to complete the triangle, you go for sustainability. To be honest, if I'm not mistaken, this one I can confirm that the interconnections between Malaysia and Thailand, as well as Malaysia and Singapore, is already established. I don't know since when, maybe Hafifi can help me on this. For example, between Malaysia and Thailand, we have a HVDC connection between Gurun and Klongek. I can't remember the exact capacity, maybe 1,000 megawatt, I can't remember. But the one that we have between Plentong in Johor and in Jurong in Singapore is 1,000 megawatt interconnection. Why do we have this? interconnection because first we want to address the security of the supply. This acts as another line of defense if anything happens to whether Malaysia, Thailand or Singapore's frequency. This is to prevent the grid collapse. That's one thing. If that is manageable, now people are talking about green. Why people are talking about green is because of affordability before we go into sustainability. For example, a few years back, we heard that Singapore is buying green power from Laos because Laos has surplus of hydro energy. But how does the electrons from Laos is going to travel all the way from Singapore? It has to pass through Thailand, it has to pass through Malaysia. In order for the electron from Laos to pass through Thailand, to pass through Malaysia, definitely Thailand and Malaysia will impose what we call SAC, or in layman's term, wheeling charges. Because you are using my assets, you are using my infra in order to monetize your electrons, right? So this must be firm first. I don't know what is the latest development of that agreement, but I believe this is one of the way forward in ASEAN to have a unified grid. That being said, for example, in Singapore, why they need green energy? Remember in the previous session, Mr. Narinder mentioned that the carbon tax in Singapore is increasing from $25 per ton to $48 per ton. In order for them to avoid this cost, they need to purchase green energy to offset this cost. So the cost of the green energy, we can price it at the same level of the price of carbon tax. And this is where the economies of scale comes in. This is how you place the tariff of your green energy. This is how you price the your system access charge. This is how you price your renewable energy certificates and what on. This will spur on. But it have a limitation. Why? Because now we mentioned that, for example, we take Malaysia. The grid emission factor is at 0.758. What does it mean? Every 1 megawatt of electricity generation, you emit 0.758 ton of carbon. So more and more green energy coming into the grid emission factor will go down. When the grid emission factor will go down, irrespective of the carbon tax, the value of green energy, what will happen? It will go down as well, in tandem with the grid emission factor. I hope anyone can challenge me about this. I might be right, I might be wrong. But this is my personal view, this is my personal take on this regarding the future of green energy. But the money that we have now in terms of what we have in green energy, for example, the premium that we pay in order to get renewable energy certificate, we need to make sure that we plow back in order to increase the adoption of green energy or supply of green energy into the system. That way, we can meet back the national or the regional target for sustainability. For example, Malaysia have a net zero carbon emission target by 2050. At least 70% of our energy mix come from renewable energy by 2050. How are we going to do it? How are we going to fund it? This is how. When the premium that we obtain from selling green energy, we plow back into the system so that it will not burden the government, it will not burden the players, it will not burden the end users for obtaining green energy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so it's a very complex situation. Yeah, interconnected systems, talking about electron traveling from Laos to Singapore, for example. Yeah, so very interesting, and the importance of green energy and others. Yeah, so I think because of the time limitation, I would like to open the Q&A to the audience, just to give the audience time to communicate as well your questions to the panels. So I would like to pass to the MC for the questions from the audience.
Thank you, Doctor. Okay. Like previous session, we are viewing the scan for QR code for you to raise up any questions. And with me, there's a few questions here. Shall I make the first questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, sure. Okay, the damage to infrastructure from natural disaster like typhoon, sinkhole, flood. What has been done in the energy industry to handle such unexpected disruption? This, any one of you shall answer this?
Definitely, everybody is looking at me, so I have to take this. Basically, when we talk about natural disasters, nobody can predict natural disasters. Nobody can somehow prevent natural disasters. We just can manage how we react to natural disasters. One is about insurance, but insurance also does not cover force majeure. But more importantly, how we manage the loss of supply when a few parts or a portion of the asset is being damaged by natural disasters. The answer is that the surplus in the system that we have in Malaysia, in Peninsular Malaysia for the time being, if I'm not mistaken, we have more than 30% surplus of supply. This is to ensure great stability. Yes, it's cost, but this is what we need to do in order to ensure, remember the energy trilemma? The first element, grid security. With the assurance of grid security, irrespective of attacks, irrespective of natural disasters and whatnot, we won the trust of investors. We can bring in more FDIs to Malaysia. So the cost is being offset by more FDIs coming into Malaysia. I believe that's the short answer for that. Anyone want to elaborate more?
Anyone?
Yeah, maybe I add to this, talking about natural disaster. I always have this experience to share. In Malaysia, don't have so much natural disaster apart from recent flood. In December 2022, one of my solar system in Philippines was destroyed by the super typhoon. The whole solar panel, the whole building flew away, shopping malls. So damaging our, the whole system. So few million ringgit of damage. So these are the real things that we have seen. So luckily, just now, Raziv mentioned that insurance is very important. So insurance paid for that. So very lucky. So remember to keep your insurance, keep your insurance alive. Don't delay pay your insurance. So that's what I learned.
Okay, thank you for the answers. Next up, we have how critical is energy storage in addressing intermittency, and what advancements are being made in this area?
I think I'll take this one. The short answer is very critical. Yeah. But then again, there is a reason why battery storage has only been made mandatory recently in the CRESS program. It's only because of we're starting to hit the system reliability limit, and a study was done back, I can't actually recall when, but it has been set that the limit for Malaysian grid is about 6 gigawatt of intermittency generation. 2019, right. I know the guy who actually did the study, yeah, but yeah, so it's set at 6 gig. So now we're hitting that spot, 6 gigawatt. So anything beyond 6 gigawatt, then you need battery energy storage. Reason being is the fact that once you hit that, then the inertia of the system can't withhold the intermittency of that 6 gigawatt. So that's why we need firm generation, and that's why if some of the developers choose to opt for the second option, which is without battery storage, that 45-cent charge will be used to actually install battery energy storage system in the grid, just to withstand the impact of the intermittency. So because the thing is, right, the ramping up of the generators, the thermal generators, is not as fast as the loss of load due to solar, should it dip. We're probably looking at about 20 megawatt per second drop as opposed to 8 megawatt or 10 megawatt ramping up speed. So with the excess generation in Peninsula, that can actually withstand 6 gigawatt of intermittency. Anything beyond that, then the system will be at risk. Again, short answer to your question is very important. The question is who's going to finance it? Either the developer is going to finance it or the system is going to finance it for the developer. Thanks.
Thank you. Short and precise.
If I can
Oh,
add
yeah.
something again, sorry. This is a conventional thinking. The battery, so the current thinking is like this. So I challenge the current thinking also. Try to challenge what is in the grid in Malaysia. So Malaysia has a very high reserve margin, right? Probably now, close to 50%. I don't have the latest number, 40-50%. For 20 gigawatt of peak demand, I think probably now we have 30 gigawatt of install. Now only 30%. Okay, come down already. Okay, it's because some retired. Okay, the plant is still there, so they are extending some contract. So 30%, 40% based on the planning is still relatively quite high if you look compared to some of the more advanced market in terms of energy mix. So instead of putting up expensive battery system, today we can actually delay the deployment of expensive battery by doing some advanced forecasting, grid planning, by utilizing the asset in the grid. So you can actually postpone the deployment. You could look at nodal planning. So one thing that I mean, we have a lot of TMB people here, right? So you all do planning. I'm not the expert, but a lot of the system putting in the solar generation, there's no managing where we put the solar plant. Most of the solar plant are concentrated in the north, so means there are more intermittency in the north. So is there an active, exercise to spread the solar plant around, right? Rather than letting the developer choose where is the cheapest. So first of all, you need to spread it around so that your intermittency can be managed. You can do advanced forecasting. So basically, you can delay the introduction of battery or a large amount of battery in the system. So this is how it can be done. If you look at advanced market like South Australia, where you have getting to 70-80% energy mix from green now, their reserve margin is very, very low. It's probably 5%, right? So they have battery and wind, 5% reserve margin, can you imagine? So the rest is coming from maybe interstate export and all this. So I think we can actually look at what forecasting and a lot of the active management of the grid in a high renewable energy scenario to actually manage the grid, optimize the management of the grid. So not only battery is the only solution. It's an expensive solution, which we will do sooner or later, but there are some other solutions as well.
Can I add to this? Because this is a very interesting topic. Yeah. So, you know what is faster than ramping up a gas turbine? Is switching off load. Yeah. So, what happened in most of the advanced countries is the fact that there is a scheme for them to switch off load. Load shed. Malaysia has it actually. If you can recall, back in 2001, 2002, there was a blackout. But that particular blackout does not actually involve the whole peninsula, but certain hotspots. So what happened is the grid system, Malaysia grid system, it has this under frequency load shedding scheme. I'm not sure whether Razif can tell you about this, but since I'm no longer working with TMB, I can actually spill the beans. And so what happened is, if you lose a generator, in that particular case, they lost a line. So what happened is there's a control load shedding, so that it will actually stop from the whole country to go blackout. Same concept can be applicable for what Tam just mentioned just now. Rather than putting up batteries, what you can do is you can introduce demand response. You can identify few customers who can actually contribute to demand response. They will be saying, we don't care, just pay us some money, we'll load shed. This particular instance, this particular case has happened before, involving the steel mill players. Back in 2012, when we had that gas curtailment issues. So what happened is, TMB offered to them, any of you guys wanted to be load shed, we'll compensate. Yeah. So this, but moving forward, another options that can be considered is to actually introduce a commercial arrangement or a policy that can encourage commercial bilateral agreement between customers and the utilities in order for them to load shed and for us not to pay extra for the battery storage or aeroderivative gas turbine just to handle the intermittency in the system. That is one thing that can be considered. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for the very insightful answers, short and precise, I might say. And I think we have only that time for a question, so maybe the moderator, you can wrap up the session. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much everyone for the questions, and we hear so much fantastic answers from our expert today. So to end the session, I would like to give a huge thank you to all our wonderful panelists. Yeah, I'm Muhammad Razif Abdul Halim, yeah, Mr. Tam Chi Aun and Mr. Noh Hafifi. Please give them a clap. Yeah, thank you. So your expertise and insights have truly made this an engaging and valuable conversation. Yeah, so it was very interesting to learn about all this demand management, load shifting, and so on. So before we wrap up, I want to emphasize one key takeaway from today's session. Yeah, first of all, achieving reliability in renewable energy is no longer just a dream. It's happening right now. And through various technological innovations, smart grid solutions, demand response strategies, supportive policies, as mentioned by our speakers, and interconnected system, will be on our way towards achieving Malaysia going towards this net zero direction and clean and reliable energy. Yeah. So with that, I would like to thank all the audience today for attending this session. And thank you very much, and please enjoy the rest of the events. Thank you so much.
Okay, once again, thank you our moderator, Professor in Senior Dr. Sharifah Rafidah from UTM, in Senior Muhammad Razif Abdul Halim, the Managing Director of TNBX Berhad, Mr. Tam Chi Aun, the Founder and CEO of Detroit Energy Malaysia, and Encik Nur Hafifi Jalal from UM Lesra Berhad. Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, kindly pay attention to the projected visual. Okay, we make way for a photo op. Okay, thank you so much, our moderator, our speakers, for that fantastic, amazing session. Thank you so much. Okay, back to the main screen. Ladies and gentlemen, what we can see here on the big screen in front of you is a snapshot by offering instant shareable summaries and idea clouds. The summit ensures the attendees can retain and apply what they learn well beyond the event itself, aligning with our mission of making lasting impacts in sustainability practices. Okay, so overall, that is what we are projecting right now. And we will share the link with all the participants later. And for those who wishes to fill up some empty cups of coffee, you may do so. But we are going to start immediately, just so you know. Our next session will be the case study. So maybe don't go anywhere that far. Don't go far, yeah? Because we will immediately start our next session. That is the case study session. I'm still waiting for the queue to start. Sure. Do come back and fill up the seats promptly after you have had some coffees.